So now we are going to start with circuit breakers. So what is the difference between a fuse and a circuit breaker? So while I'm starting about the different types of relays, while you are studying about the introduction regarding the production of relays, so I have first explain what is the difference between the fuse and the circuit breaker. So fuses can be used for the low voltage applications, while these circuit breakers are used for the high voltage applications. So for residential applications, you can see you will be having only fuses and a very little amount of circuit breakers where you are having the three-phase supply. Okay, so when you are dealing with the high voltages, you need a proper production system which you can use it as a circuit breakers. So why we cannot use the fuses is because since more amount of current when is flowing, it will be easily fuses will be burnt out. Okay, so here the circuit breakers will give such high production and efficient production for the high voltage applications. Okay, so the arrangement uh, of switches along with fuses cannot have a desired function in the switch gear when it is going when we are going for the high capacity circuits. So in such cases, we can have an circuit breakers. So circuit breakers, either you can use it at the no load condition, it will be operating at the no load condition, or it will be operating at the full load condition also. So it will be operating at both the situations. So these now we are going to see about what is the circuit breaker, what are the different types of the circuit breakers, and how the circuit breakers will be operating. So all these things will be dealt in this topic. So what is a circuit breaker is? Circuit breaker is an equipment which you can see the three ways how the circuit breaker gets operates. So either it can break the circuit manually, or either it is done by the remote control under the normal conditions, or it can break a circuit automatically under the fault conditions. It can make a circuit either manually or by remote under the fault conditions. Okay, so already have studied the circuit breakers, already have studied about the different types of relays which you have used for the alternators, transformers, as well as transmission lines and feeders. So all these productive relays will be finally connected to a trip circuit which is called as a circuit breaker, which the trip circuit finally it will be operating the circuit breaker. So you know what is the difference between the circuit breaker and the relay? So relay is nothing but it gives the information to control the circuit breaker or to operate the circuit breaker. Okay, so this can be done either manually, or either it can be done automatically, or it can be done with the help of the remote control as per your need. Okay, so the circuit breakers can be operated in any way. So for example, if you want to say, if you want to close a power supply of a particular room, you will be having a circuit breakers at a particular room. You will be manually, you will be going and switching off it. Or if any short circuit happens, or if any over voltage happens, if you overloaded at this condition, automatically it will be tripped off, or it will be the circuit breakers will be automatically operating. So advanced version of it comes is now the circuit breakers are operated automatically or remote with the help of the remote control. So when it with the help of the smart techniques which we are using, like what you are doing, you can see some projects with this which is done with IoTs, and you can see some projects which is done with the help of this some Arduinos and all those things. So all those things you can have the for example, you can take the smart meters. These are how the smart meters and how it gets smart rooms, how it gets operates. All these are nothing but here everywhere you are having the circuit breakers, and if a person is not in a particular room, it will be automatically switched off. Or if a person, if you want to, if you went outside with, if you have if you have a doubt that whether I have switched off the lights and fans at the room before I'm coming out of the room. In such cases, with the help of the mobile, with the help of a smart techniques, you can remotely you can operate. And these are the things which these are the different techniques which can be applied for the circuit breakers for operating. Okay. So next, when a fault occurs at any part of a system, you can take you can take full transmission lines. You can take all full transmission lines, all the transmission lines. Sorry, you can take all the power system applications, starting from the generating side to the till distribution side. You study different types of the relays, and finally, all the relays are connected to a trip circuit, and finally, the trip circuit is connected to the circuit breaker. So wherever the fault occurs at any part of a system, the trip coil of a circuit breaker gets energized and the moving contacts will be operating and it will be opening the circuit. Okay. So this is called as a circuit breaker. So now, how the circuit breaker gets operated? So circuit breakers are nothing but it will be having the two contacts, and this two contacts will be separated under the fault condition. When the contacts are at a normal operation, these contacts will be closed. When the contacts are closed, the current or the electricity, the power will be flowing. So whenever a fault occurs, so the relays will be connected to the circuit breakers, and the relay, when it senses the fault, the relay coil will be energized, and the relay will be used study different types of relays, and you know how these relays will be operating. And this relays will be opening the trip, will be energizing the trip circuit, and the trip circuit will be opening the contacts. That is called as actually a circuit breaker. So when these contacts gets opened, a phenomena which is called as an arc will be present between the contacts. Okay, so we will be detailing studying how the arc is produced and how these arc can be reduced at the different conditions. What are the issues related to the arc? Everything we'll be studying later. So what is arc? That is the thing which we are going to see now. This arc produced will interrupt the current which is flowing, fault current. So not only it interrupts the or delays the current interruption, it also generates some heat between the contacts. So this heat which is produced due to this arc phenomena will reduce the sensitivity of a device, or sometimes it will damage the circuit breaker by itself because of the arc which is produced. So you need different types of protection devices in the circuit breakers itself. We need some protection devices main, because the main parameter which affects the damages the circuit breaker is arc. So we need some protective devices either. So based on this only, we are classifying the circuit breakers into different types as oil-based circuit breakers and air-based air-blast circuit breakers, oil circuit breakers, and different SF6. Like there's different types of circuit breakers we are using. The medium which is used to reduce this arc is called as based on that medium, we are saying that we are classifying the different types of the circuit breakers. So the main problem which occurs in the circuit breakers is we want to remove this arc for the safer operation. So and this arc has to be removed at a very short period so that the heat generated will be avoided, so that we can avoid the damage of the circuit breakers. So now how arc phenomena, how is an arc is produced? So when short circuit, let us take when a short circuit occurs, you know what happens at the short circuit. So when a short circuit occurs, a heavy current will be flowing, and a high amount of current will be flowing. So at this condition, what happens in the system? So this heavy current, when it flows, you know how the relay gets operated. So when the heavy current flows, it will be when there is if suppose the CTs are connected at the either ends of these alternators, or either it is connected to the primary side of the transformer, it may be anything. So when there is an enormous amount of fault current or the short circuit current which is flowing, the current will be sensed by the CT secondary, and the CT secondary will be now giving the supply to the relay coil, which is the trip circuit. It will be giving a supply to the trip circuit. So on this trip circuit, what it has, these relay coils will be energized, and these relay coils will be operating energies in the trip circuit. And the trip circuit now it will open the circuit breakers. It means that the contact with two contacts of a circuit breakers will be opened. This is the thing which we normally use it for the production purposes in the power system applications. So when a large current flows, and when the current density, when it is more, what happens in the contacts, it will lead to the increase in the temperature. This normally it produces enormous amount of heat. Okay, so the contact, now what is the medium which is present between the contacts? Is air is the medium which is present between the conductors, acts as a conducting medium, acts as a medium. So and then now arc is present between the conductors, basically, and air will be as a medium. So the arc which provides the low resistance path, it will be providing the low resistance path. So therefore the current in the circuit will be uninterrupted as long as the arc will be continuing. So the greater the arc resistance, so if you are maintaining the greater arc resistance, the current will be very small, between the contacts. So this is the technique which we are going to implement for reducing the arc. So you have an idea that, so when arc resistance is high, the current will be, when a resistance is high, current will be low. So if you are increasing the arc resistance, the current which is present between the contacts will be reduced. Okay. So on what are the parameters this arc resistance depends. So it is based on the factors. First one is degree of ionization. So the arc resistance, which increases with the decrease in number of ionized particles between the contacts. So when the circuit breaker opens, it means circuit breaker is nothing but two contacts. When this contact gets opened, you know that the medium which is present is air is the medium which is present. So when the arc resistance is high, the number of ionized particles will be decreased. Okay. Next is length of the arc. So when the length of the arc gets increases, the arc resistance also increases. So that is when the separation of the contact is more, the arc resistance also will be more. So it is better to maintain the, so when the contact which gets opened, if its area is, if the cross section area is larger, you will be having the more amount of the arc resistance. So next, cross section of the arc. So the area of a resistance, the arc resistance gets increases with the decrease in area of the cross section. If you decrease the cross section of the, if you decrease the cross section of the arc, the resistance will increase. So these are the three parameters. So first is degree of ionization, next is length of the arc, next is cross section of the arc. Okay, so degree of ionization means the number of ionized particle between the contacts decreases, the arc resistance increases. Next, length of the arc, when the separation of a contacts, that is when the length of the arc increases, the arc resistance also gets increases. Next, cross section of the arc resistance increases with the decrease in area of the cross section of the arc. So these are the three factors where the arc resistance depends. So how we will remove this arc extinction? The factors which is responsible for maintenance of arc between the contacts is, what is a potential difference? So potential difference between the contacts. So it is the best way to extinguish or remove the arc, which is, because what is the problem with the arc is, if the arc gets exists for a long time, the temperature gets increases and it will damage the circuit breaker. So we want to extinguish, or we have to remove the arc. So what is the best thing is to remove the arc. We need to separate the contacts such that potential difference becomes inadequate to maintain the arc, so that the potential difference will not maintain the arc. So this is possible in the case of the low voltage systems, but this is impractical in the case of the high voltage systems. Okay. So next is ionized particle between the contacts. So what I'm saying is, previously what I have shown, that is the same thing I'm saying it here. So the ionized particle between the contacts. So if arc path is deionized, the arc extinction will be facilitated. So by the time we need to cool that arc, and another way is we can remove the ionized particle with between the contacts, so by some external means, or by using some any other techniques, or by forcing some cooling agents or something, we can remove the ionized particles totally from the contacts. So these are the basically two methods of arc extinction. So first one is high resistance arc. Second one is low resistance or the current zero method. So high resistance arc, the arc resistance. If you having the high resistance, the current flow will be low. So that is a simple concept. The arc resistance which is made to increase with the time, so that the current is reduced to a value insufficient to maintain the arc. So if you're having the high arc resistance, the current will be reduced. It will not have an insufficient, it will not have a sufficient time to maintain the arc. The arc will vanish as soon as possible. Okay. So, but the disadvantage of the method is enormous amount of energy will be wasted, will be dissipated in the arc. So when you know what is the I square, or similar way. So when the resistance is more, so automatically more amount of energy will be wasted. So this type will not be applicable in the case of the AC circuits. It will be possible only in the case of the DC circuit breakers. Okay. So next, so what are the techniques which can be employed for increasing the resistance of the arc? So first one is lengthening of the arc. You know, what is the lengthening of the arc? The resistance of a arc is directly proportional to its length. So if you increase the length, the arc resistance will be more. It means that increasing the gap between the contacts, circuit breaker contacts. Okay. So next is cooling the arc. So deionization, we saw how it can be, deionization can be done by cooling, by using some external agents, either by using the oil or either by passing some gases. We can cool the area which is between the contacts. So the cooling helps in deionization of the medium between the contacts. So because of this cooling and the deionization, so it will increase the arc resistance. So efficient cooling may be obtained by either, as I told, it can be obtained either by the gas blast circuit breakers or oil blast circuit breakers. Next is reducing the cross section of the arc. You know what happens with the respect to the cross section of the arc. So if the area of cross section of arc is reduced, means the voltage which is necessary to maintain the arc is increased. Means that potential difference, the voltage. So by having the smaller area of the contacts, it will be possible to arc. We can interrupt the arc. Okay. Next is splitting up the arc. The arc which is produced in between the contacts can be split up into the different different spaces into a different in a series. So that is called as the splitting of the arc. So the resistance of arc can be increased by splitting the arc into a number of small arcs. It can be converted into a small arcs, or it can be converted into small arcs in the series. So this can be done with the help of lengthening or either by the cooling. So this only by this makes it can be split up into the smaller arcs. Some are either by introducing some separations between the contacts, by introducing some plates between the contacts. You can split up the arcs into the different smaller arcs. So by this way, you can the resistance of the arc can be increased. These are the different ways which you can be used for reducing the arc. Next is low resistance at the current zero method. This method is employed for arc extinction. So that method is employed for only in the DC circuits because it is not practical thing which is applicable. So here, if you want to go for the arc extinction in the case of AC circuits, this low resistance at the current zero method can be employed. So in this method, the arc resistance is kept low until the current is so. So for example, if you so simply if you want to see, if you take an AC current, so it has both positive half cycles and the negative half cycles. So at the positive half cycle completed, it will come to zero, and after that it will start the next half cycle. Then again it will be coming to zero, and it will be again starting the next half cycle. This thing is continuously repeated in the case of the AC circuits. By using this, so when it comes to the zero, so at that time we can have the arc extinction. So that is the thing which you are going to see here. So the arc resistance is kept low until the current is zero, where the R extinguishes naturally. So this is the natural process. It is prevented from restriking in spite of the rising voltage across the contacts. So we can avoid these rising voltage across the contacts. As I told, this AC circuits, it is natural concept. So when it comes a positive half cycle, it comes to zero, negative half cycle. So this is a continuous process. So high power AC circuit breakers employs this arc extinction technique. So at every current becomes zero, the arc extinguishes for some moment. So as I told, so when positive half cycle is complete, comes to zero. So every cycle at every current zero, the arc extinguishes for the some moment. So now the medium between the contacts contains the ion. So you know this. You previous topics you studied how this can be deionized and all those things, either by using the cooling medium. So that contains the ions and the electrons, so that it has a small dielectric. It will be it's forming a dielectric state, and it can be easily broken with the help of the restriking voltage. Okay, so to this I will stop today. Tomorrow we can see the different techniques which is used. What are the ways we can obtain this low resistance at the current zero method, and then we can go for the restriking voltage. Next topic. Okay. So if you have any doubts, you can either you can post in the group so that you can I will clarify tomorrow, because only 30 minutes and 40 minutes it is possible to do here.